Welcome back to the most professional beyond all reason, with our commander in the red, it's xFactorLive, and across the map facing off, the commander in the blue, we have Autopilot. A highlight match from the grand finals of the Beyond All Reason Pro League, and I'm looking forward to what these literal top tier players are able to accomplish, almost as much as I'm looking forward to you smashing that like button, and maybe even subscribing. And Jimmy, what are we? Yeah, we're raising the bar. 250 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. I'll probably do it anyways, but thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. There's a few things we got to go over. 1v1. In order to win the game, you must destroy your opponent's commander. That is it. It doesn't matter how far ahead you are in resources, how big your army. If the commander gets taken out, the game is over. And now we can use our fancy spectator interface to talk about what helps facilitate that. I don't think we're going to have much time, as both sides are already producing units. We have a split in the production. But the most important thing is metal. The metal income per second determines how many units you're able to create. Yes, there's some other details, but metal makes the army go round. If you have more metal, that almost always translates into a lead. Energy is used to produce units, fire weapons, and a whole array of other things. Energy facilitates the metal turning into army, turning into their commander being taken out. So the energy is gathered on this map. Wind at an average of 12, going to be a strong option, but a little risky because it fluctuates. Solar panels as well can be used. And of course, build power. Build power doesn't generate resources, but it turns them into the things you want. The commander, for example, has 300 build power. This little construction bot that's in a precarious position has only 80. But that determines how fast you're able to build things if you have the resources. So, those three are pretty important for the general rate of production, but metal produced in total, definitely something to keep tabs on. It gives you a pretty good gauge of how much they're able to accomplish, though doesn't necessarily mean they're in the lead. Energy production as well. Army value is the value in metal, including the commander, which is 1250 itself. And defense value. Turrets, other things that Autopilot should probably have to stop a single rascal from destroying all of his metal extractors. But unfortunately does not. Forced to repair it with the commander right off the bat. And I think it's a bit of a glitch. Autopilot is not spamming GLHF in the chat. Or he is, and that's quite a power move. But now, we also have utility value, things like construction, turrets, radar. Economy value, metal extractors themselves, other things that give you more resources, and then just damage dealt overall. So, both players expanding out, getting those metal extractors, and we've already seen quite a split. Where, let's see if I can get that. No, that's worse. Oh, fixed it. xFactorLive has opted for the vehicle plant, whereas Autopilot gone for the bots. The vehicles are faster and stronger overall, harder, arguably better. But the bots are much more maneuverable, they're cheaper, and they also provide access to res bots. And there's these fancy crystals over here, not metal, but instead energy. And those energy crystals can be used to boost your production before you have quite as much online. So overall, to start, the construction vehicles are a little better suited to grabbing more of those metal extractors out on the field. But the lack of maneuverability can also be exploited by the bots that xFactor or Autopilot is continually sneaking around. So while they are the same faction, the same commanders, no Armada here, but the Cortex, the split in the types of units, at least for now, will determine how they're going to play it out. Ooh, and some radar on the high ground, giving it full vision, pretty much everything except this side of things. Glyphs and other things. It's realistic, just like the weapons. If laser weapons are fired at longer range, you got less damage. You can see there, the DPS of the grunt drops off with range. Projectile weapons have less accuracy, or more, depending on the angle. And I'm sure we're going to see that exploited and used to great effect by both these players. But already some incisors. The light tanks as the stronger unit, still a bit expensive and lacking maneuverability. You got to have a baseline set of units. Turrets are good, but they're expensive and they don't give you more income. Whereas these grunts and incisors might be able to actually destroy units and open them up to be reclaimed. We'll talk about that later on. But if you are a more seasoned, beyond all reason veteran, and I say anything that's blatantly wrong, let me know in the comments. I'm trying to provide a little bit of extra commentary for those who might not be as experienced. The game is free to play, by the way, and developed entirely by volunteers. Like, well, how do they make money? And that's the thing. They don't. Though there is a roadmap to come to Steam, and I think everybody's waiting on it. With much anticipation, still a long while away. Now the grunts finding the incisors. But the tanks are moving straight in both players, with their commanders still back at home, providing that build power to the main economy. Well, you can actually see the focus of each player with those light up cursors there too. See where they're focusing on, if they're looking the right way. Now, it looks like the tanks can make it up the hill, but that is not a good angle to be engaging into, if you can avoid it. So we'll see. More grunts are coming around for a flank, which increases the damage. If you're able to come in from 2 different angles, it's up to double the damage, maybe even more. But flanking is a big deal, and part of the reason why bots might be able to overrun. But overall, the grunts just getting obliterated here. The incisor is able to limit the angle. Now cutting out the laser turret. I wanted to say missile turret out of reflex, but incisor is just chewing through, and already terrible, terrible damage being dealt. Just cutting through. Where's the response? The construction bot gonna get taken out. There's a few grunts idle on the other side, but there's no time for work breaks. You're robots. We thought replacing you with automation would be a good thing, but instead, you got a little distracted for obvious reasons. And this will open up quite a lead for xFactorLive. Still, the grunts taking out. The tanks really showing their value here. On such a huge map with so much space and relatively open plains. There's not a lot of choke points, not a lot of cliffs. Another interesting thing is Autopilot chose his starting location as further down. The maps are rotationally symmetrical, which means he could have started in the same location, but he chose to start lower down, which that means his commander isn't at the back to defend. Meanwhile, xFactor spawned all the way at the back. So that way his vehicles had the most possible space to work with. And so far, that's paying off for him dramatically. He's produced 11% more metal overall. And he's continually cutting off the outer mexes here, the metal extractors. But he also hasn't been able to establish too many of his own over to the 9 o'clock area, that western quadrant. None of those words really made sense. But the Resbot resurrecting the laser turret. Resbots can use energy and some metal to rebuild things for instead of having to bring another construction bot over. And this brings us to Reclaim. Probably my favorite part of the game is the Resbot / Reclaim mechanic. Whenever a unit dies, they're all made out of metal, which means they leave some behind. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, those wrecks leave behind about 2/3 of the metal that was put into them. So, as you see here, the incisors, there's 70 metal in each of those wrecks. Or even the Resbot, it looks like he has a repeat command for resurrecting those units. So instead of just scrapping them, he wants to turn them into his units, bring them back, patch them up, and turn it around. That salvage mechanic can make a huge difference in especially relatively close fights like we have right now. But so far, almost entirely off the map. Pro Autopilot, I think pro is just indicating he's a pro gamer. I'm not exactly sure. It's like a clan tag almost, though it feels a little on the nose. Then again, there's at least one X in his opponent's name, so let's not be quick to judge. But the Resbots, now some incisors being added in. The Rascal scouting ahead. Incisors are over to the southern flank getting cut down, and that's not enough of them. Especially with his own tanks turned against him. What do we see? The grunts trying to chase it down. The army value is in favor of our reg commander, and the incisors are moving in. Does he have vision of this? He does now. The radar was certainly spotting it, and now he has direct vision. Autopilot moving down with his commander to deal with this head on. The D-guns come out. one-shotting anything they touch besides other commanders. But not leaving behind a wreck to resurrect or reclaim. So it appears Autopilot has stopped the bleeding for now. In fact, he salvaged his bot lab. He reclaimed it for its metal and now has a vehicle plant. He agrees that the vehicle plant was probably a better idea. He still has the res bots from the bot lab, but he won't be able to rebuild them unless he rebuilds that lab. Meanwhile, xFactor has not added any other sort of production facilities. He's just continuing. He's building up brutes, the medium tanks, pretty much the strongest core, puns intended, tank you can get. But that's your run-of-the-mill generic, strong, relatively fast tier 1 unit. Meanwhile, though, some pounders. I saw some pounders. Anti-swarm tanks. Much heavier, much slower, much like your mother. This pounder is going to cut down any groups of units easily. Of course, it can be outmaneuvered, but it effectively zones out the lighter tanks especially. Well, here come the brutes. Going to try to break through the lines. The grunt's already set up. And already blasting away. Knocks out the metal extractor. The grunt's trying to close in. Get a better angle on these brutes so far. Not able to do so. Meanwhile, there's a line drawn on the other side. The brute's able to fire while moving away. Giving them... And since they're being chased, they have effectively more range. Though, technically the shots can be dodged. And so far, Autopilot doing a great job of doing so. And now, coming down the ramp, down the cliff face, into the incisors, with incisors of his own. That'll just give him a distinct advantage across the board, both in damage and range. Terrain and types of weapon attacks are very relevant and beyond all reason. I don't feel confident in telling you exactly all the details, but just know the high ground is something that you don't want to test unless you have a distinct advantage, as many have found in the past. Brutes getting chased down. Incisors as well. And the grunts dodging most of the hits. Autopilot striking back now. Already moving through. He snipes off a couple mexes with a single grunt. And the construction vehicle will be taken down as well. So overall, well, the brutes are trying to press back. The pounder, though, just zoning things out, making it almost impossible. Vehicles struggle to get up those hills. Bots much better suited. They don't have nearly as much acceleration or slowdown. Tanks have to turn around, get going. I mean, I guess realistically. Brutes chasing it down. I want to hear the... Oh, I'm sure it'll get more dramatic, but still, the metal per second and the metal production heavily in favor of xFactor. Even though he's been pushed back across the map, that lack of extraction for so long has definitely had an effect. But the army value right now is only 9% in his favor. Has he teched up? No. So, doesn't really have the army to match on the field here. Both sides. The construction vehicles queued up in front. Pretty big mistake. They're losing both of them. That means he won't be able to grab any of this on the ground. And in fact, the resbots are still alive behind. They're literally called grave robbers. And now try to get a hold of the graves of anything else on this side. They've got to be a little careful that he doesn't make the same mistake. Losing those resbots would take a lot of wind out of the sails of this push. Speaking of, technically there's water on this map, but we'll see if it ends up being used. The brutes still fighting a retreating action. Meanwhile, trying to break down the hill. Standoff will continue. The concave just too good for xFactor. Down to the south now, and the lines are drawn. The brutes are moving in. Speaking of other tech, though, a construction aircraft, that means an air plant has been created, of course. And I'm not sure if xFactor has any knowledge of it, but shurikens could be immensely helpful in order to slow things down. The EMP stuns. Did he even grab one of the construction vehicles? Not yet. There's still a couple grave robbers, but the brutes are closing in. A great concave. But none of these units really have anti-air. Technically, everything can shoot at air. It's just good luck with the little basketball grenades that the brutes are firing out. Pretty much everything can shoot at air. It's just not going to hit. There's a few things more well-suited to it. But no shurikens yet. And some fighters, both sides actually going for air. Fighters coming in to knock them down. Both of them incredibly dangerous to one another. The shurikens will manually land, as air units can't hit things on the ground. Well, unless it is an anti-ground unit. But the brawl will continue. The shurikens being added in to try to slow some of the brutes down, as a couple unit advantage could snowball out of control very quickly. He won the fighter war, targets the shuriken, fighter taken down, another brute stunned, but they're pushed back up the hill. Meanwhile, the battle continues to the southeastern side of the pond as well. Both players continuing their efforts to break through. And despite the shurikens, there's just not quite enough. The brute count for xFactor looks like it's too much for now. Trying to get a count on the brutes. We got a total of 40 at the moment. Autopilot, on the other hand, is looking at just 16 of them, but with a smattering of many other units as well. The battle continues on the high ground. And right now, clearly an advantage with that high ground for the brutes. Able to fire down as opposed to up. The DPS and accuracy advantage is dramatic here, as he's just breaking down the hill. In fact, these brutes are getting tripped up on the brutes of their friends. The wreckage is making it almost impossible to move up the hill. There's still a couple pounders on the side, but some of them getting taken out. They don't quite have the range. The brute's knocking out even more pounders. Forced to retreat for now. He gets to the bottom of the ramp. Meanwhile, another attack moving by. Autopilot not moving to intercept, but almost every tank will be taken out by the static defense. The reinforcements are on the way. The concave is there. And actually trying to maneuver around, get some flanking damage. Construction aircraft fighters brawling it out. The brutes broke through into the minerals, though. The metal. Whatever. The battle will continue, but some shurikens out of xFactor now will make a significant difference in this fight. It looked like he was going to stabilize, but things getting a lot more dicey as the brutes are taken down. Multiple construction aircraft just reclaiming, giving him such a metal advantage. 13% more metal produced overall. He's reclaiming the wrecks on the field with the air, and he has control of it for now. He's retreated dramatically off the southeastern quadrant and is relying on the Twin Guard static defense. Very good against Tier 1 units. We may actually see Tier 2 here if the battle continues like this. The continued exchanges, and actually with the commitment of all the units from the southern side of the map, he's going to be able to overrun. This obviously opens up an opportunity. Yeah, you see the non-anti-air units taking laser shots at the air. They do very poorly, but they do damage, and it adds up. Quantity has a quality all its own. More fighters coming out. And the battle for the hill will be fought yet again. Whoever controls it can easily stage a full attack. So, is there radar? Well, there's vision, but the radar is blocked by this hill for the most part, making it very difficult to make an educated decision until you get over the top of it. xFactor. Oh, look at the total army value, which is actually in favor of Autopilot, who's turned it around. He now has a pretty massive economy, and he does have Tier 2. Incredible, 2,800 metal to build the Tier 2 vehicle plant. He's looking for some Tier 2 metal extractors, which are 4 times. Both players taking up at the same time. Great minds think alike here. So, Tier 2 economy and tech is an order of magnitude stronger than Tier 1. It's kind of rare in 1v1 because of how expensive it is. Imagine if, like in StarCraft 2, you had to build like 4 more starports to build a battle cruiser just to get your next base. That's kind of a poor yet very rough comparison to what it takes to get Tier 2. But then that base mines 4 times as fast. So it's a huge investment that if even a few seconds, not seconds, but if you're a minute or 2 ahead of your opponent, you can grind out a huge advantage. The thing is, both players... Wow, he's going straight for a fusion. Reactor. Not an advanced fusion, but The second strongest energy building, I guess besides geothermal, but I don't think there's geothermal on this map. As both players have drawn the lines in the map, the defenses to the south, and the units, is that a Tzar? Indeed. Oh, gosh. It's trying. It's, it'll get there eventually. As both players continually building up their tier 2 economy back at home, whether it's more energy production with the fusions or more metal production with the extractors. Both players now have Tzars on the field and will be blasting away. Huge damage from either side. The Tzar can it fires over the top of the hill. Has the angle and drops it down. They're able to get away for the most part in time. The aircraft exchanges will continue as well. But the lines are still drawn. The army value dead even. So far, Autopilot has actually done way more damage in this match. He's done 78% more, I think helped by the fact that xFactor has been on the attack for the most part. But xFactor has mined 8% more metal. He has 50% more build power. But kind of interestingly, Autopilot has created, or generated, I like that, 25% more energy. Though energy on its own doesn't do anything. It has to be applied to metal or other mechanics in some way to be useful. Well, I guess, so each of the static defense turrets does require energy a shot. That's a pretty general trend. Some of them cost way more than others. Not a huge factor, but can make a difference. The high ground is taken, but 2 Tzars to 1. And for some reason, there's just no vision. Does he have a jammer? It's unclear. This high ground is blocking radar for either side, and neither of them is able to get reliable vision because they both have aircraft, and if the fighter's straight too close, like, he just has no vision over the hill. Here we go. The Tzars on both sides unleashing massive hits. And whoever has one at the end, looks like the brutes will be ripped from the field. Tzars targeting their counterpart on the red side of things, and he's getting overrun. It will be taken down. That last shot finishes it off. And that's going to be a very valuable wreck, either to resurrect or just reclaim for whoever claims it. 990 metal. You could make an entire tier 1 factory and then some with that. That thing is quite expensive. So, right now, the army value, 89%. The Tzar was like 20% of the army value. But Autopilot moving through. He's even got some anti-air. Has a radar bot as well. I'm not sure if he has a jammer. There it is. There's the jammer bot. That's what's making such a huge difference here. That jammer means that he cannot see the units in there. He has to physically have vision. Radar isn't perfect, but it gives you an idea. You can technically fire at the ground anywhere, but good luck with that. So the radar and jammer vehicles helping out so much. It's now 3 Tzars to none on defense. And unless there's some sort of revolution for the red team, I'm not sure how he turns this around. Armed metal extractor, an exploiter. Quite difficult to take down. Wait, never mind. Well, for everything that's not a Tzar. The standoff will continue. He actually managed to get some of this high ground stuff. Oh, that's a huge deal. Autopilot having vision of this with radar. So he's pushing through, going for the win right here. And right now, the commander is still... What? I'm sorry. What? A gantry is completed. And he's gone for the Shivas, the siege mechs. And they can go through the center. They're amphibious as well. So the Tzars will obliterate the tanks on the field. I have no idea if the Shivas are enough to turn this around. But it is going to be a shock. And hopefully awe for xFactor. He needs it. And the Shiva is spotted. He actually managed to get to tier 3. The Tzars are brawling, but does he have the firepower? He's actually retreating from it. Unclear if he has easy vision of it, but the Shiva has a rocket launch it fires off, as well as a strong shotgun-style kind of anti-ground attack. So, no easy... Well, unless it gets stuck on the wrong side of things. He came down the ramp here, and I think he's stuck. He's trying to move. It doesn't end up working out. The Tzars still have the DPS. But xFactor, he's going for the decon. There's not vision. He's going to see it momentarily. He sees the commander. The Tzar's coming around the corner. He's got some of the Tiger tanks as well. Effectively the tier 2 brutes. Meanwhile, more Tigers getting hunted down by a swarm of grunts that he's added in. The Shivas with a massive flank on the Tzars. Might be enough to take him out. The Shurikens coming in, but the Shivas take a lot. Each unit has a certain level that needs to be reached. I'm not sure if it's based on HP, but the EMP takes quite a while. Here come the fighters exchanging up both sides. But he built up so many, he has total air control. He freezes the Shivas in place. But he doesn't have enough Shurikens to keep them all frozen. And now the anti-air is coming out. The Shivas will hold for now. What got to the back? The Tiger! The Tiger survived. It was not hunted to extinction. And that's a bit of a disaster. Every single one of these metal extractors going down is such a big deal. Especially considering whoever wins the battle is going to reclaim more of these wrecks. Meanwhile, though, there's some res bots just reclaiming. He's not even going to try to resurrect. Not in the middle of this field. Building another one. The metal extractor itself is stunned. The Shiva's coming in. The brawl continues, but the Tiger is reclaimed to death, which is an actual thing you can do. The Shivas are holding. The Shurikens don't actually do damage directly. And now, 8 Shivas marching across the map. Wait a second. Army value, 200% advantage. The X Factor apparently was just tier 3. The Shiva's marching across the map. What? Oh, he's got a gantry. The only counter to a bad dude with Shivas is an even badder dude with Shivas. And now, that's the attempt. But he salvaged, it appears he reclaimed his tier 2 lab in order to get Shivas of his own. But does he have the baseline economy? I think he does. Overall. The metal extractor count for pro is 230. He's at 234 metal a second. 50%. With neither player reclaiming, or at least doing much reclaim, he has 50% more income. So he should be able, the army value, you already see it evening out. As they continue brawling. The Shivas taking pot shots at everything here. Coming down the hill. Looking for even more. But there's 5 or 6 of them. Some tier 1 anti-air bots behind. He has to fight a retreating action, but he can't retreat too far. They're continuing to come over the hill. The grunts being filled in. Trying to mess up the targeting. Units will target whatever's closest unless you're manually doing so. The Shiva count growing on either side. Another one going to be targeted by the rockets. Doing a whole lot of extra long-range damage. Blasted apart. Reinforcements. He's almost in range of the factory, and if the gantry goes down, I think the game goes with it. But the sheer economy, the build power is sinking into it. You might only have one factory, but you can send all your resources and specialize in that factory, and that's a key part of Beyond All Reason. But xFactor behind it, he's got the reclaim bots, and he's supplementing his metal with it. But we've actually seen a swap now. More metal production, metal produced overall for Autopilot. The brawls continue. The rockets are landing, just incidentally killing a lot of the grave robbers, who will have to be robbed themselves. But the Shiva count seems to be overwhelming now with the sheer economy from Pro Autopilot. Is there an answer? Is there another tier 3 unit that's worth it? The Shiva's a solid middle-of-the-road choice. Or middle of the lake. It really doesn't matter. They're amphibious. More grunts over the hill. Both sides trying to just mess up the targeting. They're just slicing it out. Both sides with so many grunts. The rockets will be automatically triggered unless you're manually targeting, as I mentioned. So that is why they're adding in so many of these chaff units. But here comes the air. And now the shuriken swell. Gonna try to slice through onto the Shivas, which have notably little, if not any, anti-air. And he stopped building fighters. They will be taken down. Multiple vehicle plants being added in, but he freezes a couple Shivas. Coming down the ramp again. The grunts and rascals out in front. More fighters looking to exchange, but the Shivas are marching through. Fighters getting pumped out on either side. It's unclear if any shuriken survive this exchange. And xFactor's push will be shut down. There's just not enough to break down the hill yet. And there's a lot of metal on the ground. Is that a catapult? You gotta be careful with that thing. A long-range rocket bot can scatter rockets throughout an entire zip code. But you have to be so careful not to fire it at the nearest thing. You need to manually control this, because otherwise your units will feel the brunt of it. So that catapult on the back line is going to put a timer on this push. He can fire it up over the hill. It has a long cooldown, but it can unleash so many rockets. And really... No, it's not manually control. He's just blasting his own sheet. Be careful with those things. The catapults... There's so much friendly fire. And everything does full damage to everything, no matter where the target is. It's just who's on the receiving end. The rockets over the hill. The southeast quadrant. Wait a second. Big run by. He managed to get the brutes by. He slipped through the minefield, and the brutes are working on the economy. Meanwhile, the fight for the hill will continue. Thousands upon thousands of metal committed, and thousands upon thousands of metal on the ground. The catapults still trying to help out, but using... I'm trying to get the sickest camera angle, but I'm just making myself motion sick. The catapult's just blasting through. The Shivas have to be careful. They're protected if they're on the direct other side, but if they stick their snub noses out, then it becomes a lot more difficult. The rockets are continuing on both sides. The directed rockets from the Shivas. The more, the less discriminatory ones from the catapults. Was it a mistake to switch to the catapults overall, though? As they have a lot less direct damage potential, and they're more of a zone control option. The brutes were taken out, finally on the other side, but the reinforcing chaff was committed to it, and now there's nothing covering. The army value is still slightly in favor of pro Autopilot. The defenses being rebuilt over to the bottom right corner as the battle for the hill will continue. No decisive victor yet. It's likely the game goes with whoever wins the hill. Everything's in the blue right now. I don't know how the utility value is at 999%. I don't even know what utility is. Feels like that stat might not be accurate. I thought it was economy or like construction turrets, but apparently not. Well, the battle continues. The rascals, a full line of them, obliterate. A single volley from the Shivas takes it out. And now we've got some pop-up turrets on the high ground. Very difficult to take out. They have severe damage reduction unless they're actually firing. So, difficult to target from long range. The catapults are still just firing at the nearest targets, which definitely can go wrong. The line of grunts at the front. The Shivas. Another set. The grunts brawling it out. The rascals driving through. More grunts on the front line. The Shivas with the rockets. The catapults are microed back. He's continuing to reinforce the high ground. So that way, if Autopilot ever breaks through, he still has to contend with the static defense, which will help out a lot against the chaff as well. But there's some mines laid. They're going to be triggered. And a lot of damage dealt. And now the catapults are able to focus their fire much better. That is still a lot of Shivas. Everything is in the blue right now. Army value, metal per second, metal produced. But the final march of the Shivas could potentially decide. Where's the commander? He's retreating with the commander just in case. You don't want it to end like this, but the Shiva's on the other side. A counterattack trying to break through. The Shiva's with some gunships to contest them, as they have no anti-air capabilities. He will be stuffed at the front. The Shiva reinforcements. Enough for Autopilot. But he breaks through. The southeastern quadrant has been broken. The defenses still stand for Autopilot, but all the defenses completely decimated for xFactor. He's relying on gunships to eventually these wasps to take him out, but it takes a lot of them just to take down a single Shiva. The reinforcements continue. Even getting a bulwark, the long-range laser. The metal per second, so in favor of Autopilot now. There has not been a tech switch. You run the risk of losing any sort of initiative if you try to switch at this point. A Juno to disable any radar or jammers. The catapults flinging over the top. Those pop-up turrets still racking up the kills. Sabot batteries. 15-11. But the value of those kills is... it's just the chaff at this point. Both players with hundreds of metal a second can easily build all that and more. But Autopilot definitely with the overall advantage. He's using it to great effect. xFactor also behind 6,000 energy production, which is more consistent at this stage. So if he doesn't break through soon, it's unclear. Oh my. An entire swarm of shurikens. 144 shurikens. And, well, he's waiting for it. He wants to hold him down and knock him out. Is it time? He's waiting until he gets close. He's disabling the radar. The scout, he's gonna see it with the scouts. The scouting aircraft might be enough. But here come the shurikens. This is it. He's gonna try to break it here. The fighters can come in, but he can disable all the defenses and probably most of the units. There's very little anti-air. The fighters are swinging in, but he's already stunned them. Some of the Shivas almost out of the turrets as the battle continues in the sky and on the ground. Autopilot overrunning the hill, but stalled out for now. The gunships looking for the snipe on the commander, or maybe the production. Where is the commander? In the back corner cloaked, but he can get potentially the fusions. He set him up. I don't think a chain reaction will be that devastating, but I've been wrong before. The gunship's looking for the commander himself. He might find him. And there's an advanced fusion back here. This could be a disaster. Oh no! Everything taken down. The energy vulnerable. The commander is still not... he doesn't know where he is. He's cloaked. He doesn't... you need ground units nearby. He doesn't know the commander's there. But he's gutting the economy. But the ground army is just blasting through. Eventually... well, if there's no anti-air left... he still has some of the energy, but the fusions are exploding. Meanwhile, the Shivas are crushing the ground. If he doesn't gut the economy and find, and ideally, oh no, the advanced fusion. He didn't target it. He needs to get the fusion before the Shivas close in. xFactor bringing his commander back. The advanced fusion. There it goes alongside the wasps. The commander actually takes 60% damage. He's down to 40. The gunship's trying to hold. Is there anti-air? He's got some Karganeth walkers to help with anti-air. The gunship's trying to overwhelm. The Shiva's closing in. Is there enough to stop the push on the ground? The air has been wiped out. He lost all... he's at 700 energy per second. He can't sustain his production. The mass wasp swarm. The Shivas... the numbers are dwindling. The wasps are stinging them. And it's not one, it's not two, it's 39 left and hundreds more throughout. He's closed in, but I don't think he can close out. He's done it. He stopped the push. Autopilot taps out before. He's just not going to have the opportunity to rebuild. GG. We saw pretty much every tech. So that's how it ends. xFactor, despite being at a disadvantage throughout much of the mid-game, he manages to counter the massive shuriken swarm and turn it around with the wasps. There just wasn't enough anti-air. He undercommitted. xFactor was constantly scouting with the scout planes, which give you huge vision, and he was able to spot it. I don't think Autopilot was as diligent about the scouting. Though, to be fair, I wasn't watching too closely. There's so much going on. Yeah, overall, metal production in favor of Autopilot. Energy production, Autopilot by a lot. Units lost, well, he also managed that as well. But at the end of the day, it's not about how much you have, it's about how you use it. And xFactor manages to find the timing to break through, and then he crushes the push in the process. What a game. So, I certainly hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching the Beyond All Reason Pro League. Let me know if you want to see more of this or any other version of the game. You got the PvE versus the Raptors. If you check on this channel, you can find a lot more of me streaming it as well, and there are plenty of videos out there. But I hope it made your day a little bit better. Thank you for watching. The menu music. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon. Thank you to our Mule tier members, Big J, Ghidorah, K, Mario, for bringing in the extra minerals. And I hope this made your day a little bit better. Make sure to join the Bar Discord and play it for free. This is not sponsored, obviously. Nobody's getting paid for this, except in good games for the fans and, you know, ad revenue. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Stay unreasonable.